Today, I'm deeply honored to reintroduce H.R. 40, historic legislation to establish a federal commission to examine the lasting legacy of slavery, to develop reparations proposals for descendants of enslaved Africans. It is an honor to inherit the privilege of carrying this bill forward. Amen. From Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee.
Black folk, I need you to understand that for the most part, you are on your own. You have to understand that a lot of the kickbacks and the benefits and the, leaning on racial history and all the concessions that were doled out in response to that, most of that is pretty much over. And for the most part, it went to people who had already had a name, who had already had a foot in the door, and who already had access. Like, many of you may not be aware of this, but the fact of the matter is, there were a lot of people who made a lot of money off of highlighting the racial history in this country. And for the most part, like I said, a lot of the people were people who had already had a foot in the door. There were people who put out books and became bestsellers and went on tour talking about how racist white people were and microaggressions, and you may not even be aware that you're racist, but you're racist, and white fragility and white fear and white this and white that. There were people who got positions and jobs and titles at different institutions of higher learning, at different places in corporate America and on news television, based upon the history of this country and certain grievances. People got all kinds of jobs and titles and opportunities and positions, and some positions were even created. There were all kinds of nonprofit organizations that were started, and people were going around. You're not going to believe this if you weren't aware, but let me tell you something. There was a point in time where white people or white organizations that had a lot of money were actually paying people to come in and tell them about how racist they were and how not to be so racist. Like, literally, they were paying people to come in and tell them what's wrong with them and what's wrong with their whiteness and how they can show up less white, all that kind of stuff. People got TV shows and documentary projects and all kinds of media opportunities who really weren't that good, who weren't that talented, who didn't have a core audience, whose product wasn't that good, and whose product a lot of people didn't even tune in to see. All kinds of organizations, some real and some fraudulent, were given all kinds of money. There were all kinds of institutes and research hubs that have received a whole lot of money to research this and look into that. And so the reason I'm telling you this is because, believe it or not, a lot of money was handed out in the name of racial history and racial grievance over the past, let's say, 7 years, maybe even 10. A lot of money was doled out to individual people, to nonprofit organizations, to for-profit organizations, to media entities, to brands. A lot of money was given out. The fact of the matter is, for the most part, the everyday brother and sister that you were bumping to on the streets didn't see a dime of that money. Once again, for the most part, they were people who were already seen as black figures, black intellectuals, black celebrities, black freedom fighters, quote unquote, black civil rights leaders and organizations and all those. For the most part, a lot of that money was given in that direction, either directly or indirectly. And so I hate to be the one to break it to you, but for the most part, all the money surrounding the racial history in this country, all the money that's going to be given out has already been given out. And the average everyday person didn't see a dime of it. And It's over with. So you are on your own. You're going to have to figure out how you are going to survive and thrive on your own. That's just what it is. And the reason I bring this up is because the reparations talk is coming up again. And if you've been paying attention to politics lately, you'll know why it's coming up. Trump is doing what he's doing, and if we're going to keep it all the way real, the left, the Democrats, don't really have an actual response to it. They don't have a plan. They don't know what they're doing. His approval rating is higher than it's ever been. They're losing ground. They clearly don't know what to do. And so now, I don't think it's a coincidence that all of a sudden you got people talking about reparations right now. Because you need a way to galvanize people. You need a way to bring your base back in. And so, let's just throw reparations out there. Now, are we actually going to give them out? No. But let's talk about them. Let's talk about how we're going to continue to study them again, as if we didn't already study it already. This is a gimmick because they need to curry favor. They need to get people back on their side. And so, boom, let's throw reparations out there and see how that goes. But there is no actual plan on ever cutting any of us a check for anything. So there's no point of sitting online or, in YouTube chat rooms or on Twitter Spaces or anywhere else talking about reparations in this meeting and that meeting. It is not going to happen. Like I just said, all the money that they planned on giving out has already been given out. And it went, for lack of a better terms, for the most part, to the quote-unquote black boule and not to the everyday person. But trust me, there are certain people who made a whole lot of money off of the racial history in this country, off of, give me a check or I'm going to say you're racist, or give me a check and I'll tell people that you're not racist. Or give me this book deal where I talk about racism or else you're racist. Or, man, people made a whole lot of money off of that. And the money train has stopped. That's part of the reason why DEI is going away and all this other kind of stuff. Because what you have to understand is that for the past 7 to 10 years, there's been a class of black folk who have built careers and brands and become celebrities off of telling white folk everything that's wrong with them and every which way how they're racist and everything that's wrong with them and everything they need to fix. There have been people who have built a career off of doing that. And a lot of white people, in order to, for whatever reason, whether to not look racist or to work on race relations or whatever the reason was, they cut a lot of checks. People kept playing that race card and slamming it on the table and slamming it on the table. And at this point, it appears as if the card is maxed out. And all the money that's going to be doled out has already been doled out, and you didn't get any, and you're not going to get any. And so what you're going to see is the same people who've built their career off of race. They're going to continue to talk about it, and they'll make more money that way. But as far as anything being handed out tangibly, it's not going to happen. You're going to have to figure out what you're going to do to be successful on your own, because that ain't going to be the way.